Hi, in this lesson you will learn the nominative case marker 이가, and I will also explain the difference between 이가 and 는 particle. 이가 is the nominative case particle. It is attached to a noun or a pronoun. If the noun ends with a consonant, use 이, and if it ends with a vowel, then use 가. queso is a honorific form of 이가, which means you can use it instead of 이 or 가 when you talk about people who is quite older than you. For example, your parents or grandparents or someone else's parents and grandparents, teachers, professors, or CEO of the company you work for to show your respect. So, unlike 이가, queso is need to be used only when you talk about people. What is its purpose in a sentence? 이가 marks the subject of a sentence and it shouldn't be confused with 는 particle because 이가 and 는 have two completely different purposes. We'll talk about differences between them later in this lesson. Take a look at these sentences. You can pause the video and read them. Okay, so in all these sentences, the words colored in pink are the sentence subjects. As you can see, in English, we don't attach anything to sentence subjects in order to show that this is the subject of the sentence. But in Korean, we do have to attach the nominative case marker like so. Let's take a look at the Korean version of these sentences. 공원, the last letter is a consonant. That is why we used 이. 날씨, the last letter is a vowel, so I put 가. 학생, ing is a consonant, so I used 이. 집, this is a consonant. In 시계, this one is a vowel. Take a look at these examples. 제 할아버지께서 옵니다. 회장님께서 안 계십니다. You can use 이가 instead of 께서. 제 할아버지가 옵니다 and 회장님이 안 계십니다. It also would be totally correct, but in Korea, age and social status matters. It would sound more like Korean native speaker style if you use queso instead of 이가. One thing I want to mention about queso is you can attach it to any noun. It doesn't matter if the noun ends with a consonant like 회장님 or a vowel, for example, 할아버지. Okay? Before proceeding with the lesson, let's solve a quick assignment. Here's a list of nouns. Your task is to choose an appropriate particle, 이 or 가. Pause the video and write down your answers. Once you're done, play the video again to compare your answers with mine. Okay, here are the answers. 연필, 1월, 형, 문, 집, and 강. All these words end with consonants, so I put 이. And mouse, 시계, 오빠, 한국어, 버스, 차, 날씨, and with a vowel, that's why I used 가. I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Now let's look at the differences between 이가 and 는. We will start off with the purpose of these particles they serve in a sentence. 이가 marks the subject of a sentence. For example, 한국어가 재미있습니다. Korean is interesting. The subject of the sentence is Korean, 한국어, right? That's why we used the nominative case particle 가. Take a look at one more example. 선생님이 오셨습니다. The teacher came. Teacher is the subject of the sentence. Let's compare it with 는 particle. 는 is used when you define or describe nouns or actions, when you want to show a contrast or emphasize nouns or actions, and also when you want to clarify the topic of a sentence, so that others would understand you better what you are talking about. Look at these examples, especially at their English translation. These two sentences on the left-hand side and right-hand side in English sound exactly the same, but there is a little nuance in the sentences on the right-hand side. Before explaining the nuance, I want to tell you that these sentences grammatically are not correct. Never use 이가 and 는 together. Whenever you want to describe, show a contrast, or emphasize a sentence subject, attach 는 directly to the subject, like so. Because when 는 is attached to 이가 goes away, it drops. Most books don't explain this. This is why many Korean language learners get so confused. They don't know when exactly to use 이가 and 는. They think that 이가 and 는 are similar and interchangeable, but it's not true. 이가 and 는 are not variants of the same thing. They have completely different roles in a sentence. So here, you just inform a listener or reader about something. You just give information that Korean is interesting and the teacher came. But on the right-hand side, where we used 는, we want to give to a listener extra information that, unlike other languages, Korean is interesting. It doesn't mean that all other languages are boring and only Korean is interesting. No. You just want to say that you might try to learn a few languages, but Korean is especially interesting for you, comparing to other languages, or to anything else about Korea. For example, you don't like Korean food, but you like Korean language. In this case, you can also say 한국어는 재밌습니다 to show contrast. And in the second sentence, say for example you have a school party or your birthday where you invited your classmates and a teacher. So someone asks you whether all guests have already come. You can reply, 선생님은 오셨습니다, which would mean that you're not sure if all your guests came, but the teacher, yes, she came. Again, we show a contrast in this sentence. What do you think? Which of these two sentences is correct? 날씨가 좋습니다 or 날씨는 좋습니다? Well, both sentences are correct. Just you should use them in different situations. Imagine you woke up in the morning, looked outside, and you saw that the weather was good. So you can say 날씨가 좋습니다. You're not trying to compare the weather to anything else. You just give information. Now, imagine you just moved to another country and your friend is asking you, how's the country? You can say 날씨는 좋습니다, which would mean that comparing to some other things, maybe food or transportation, the weather is good. You emphasize the weather. Also, very often you will see this kind of sentences where you have both 는 and 이가. In such sentences, the parts of speech with 는 are the main topics which you want to describe. For example, look at this sentence. 친구가 많습니다. This sentence is grammatically correct and it simply says that there are lots of friends. But who has lots of friends? Who you are talking about? It's not clear. So to clarify the object you refer this information to, you can put the object before the sentence and attach the 는 particle to this object, like you see over here. 저는 친구가 많습니다. So I'm talking about myself. I'm saying that I'm the person who has lots of friends. 제 오빠는 친구가 많습니다. The topic has been changed. Now the topic is my brother. I'm talking about him. The weather is good. When the weather is good or where? It's not clear, right? So we need to add a topic. 오늘은 날씨가 좋습니다. Today the weather is good. 한국은 날씨가 좋습니다. Korean weather is good. 한국 가을은 날씨가 좋습니다. The weather in autumn in Korea is good. 서울은 날씨가 좋습니다. The Seoul weather is good. Two more examples just to make sure that you clearly understand how to use 는 particle. 매장량이 많습니다. There are many reserves of natural resources. But what natural resources we're talking about? Is it gold or silver or what? So if it's gold, put gold in here. And if it's silver, you can put silver. I put oil. 석유는 매장량이 많습니다. There are many oil reserves. If you want to clarify this information even more and give more details, you can say something like this. 중동은 석유 매장량이 많습니다. There are many oil reserves in the Middle East. So the Middle East is the topic of the sentence. I hope now you understand more clearly in what situations you need to use 은는 and 이가. Let me show you how you can combine them with different particles. So, unlike 이가, you can attach 은는 to almost any other grammatical particle, to prepositions, case markers, and most type of sentence clauses. As I mentioned earlier, 은는's job is not just to define the topic of a sentence, but to make something stand out from the rest, to drive the listener's attention to the subject, an object, an action, place, condition, etc. In most cases, when we attach 은는 to other particles, these other particles don't go anywhere. Look at this example. 사다 is to buy and 면 is if. So I can say 사면은, and as you can see, 면 did not go anywhere. 사니까는 because I buy. 이제부터는 from now on. So usually particles stay at their place, but there are a few exceptions where the particles drop. You already know that when 은는 is attached to 이가 drops. Exactly the same thing happens to accusative case particles, which indicate objects of a sentence. Take a look at a few examples. 우유를 샀습니다. I bought milk. Say, for example, your friend asked you, what did you do yesterday? And you reply, I read a book, met a friend, watched a movie, bought milk. You just inform your friend without trying to make any of your actions to stand out or emphasize. Okay? Now look at this sentence. 우유는 샀습니다. Here, the milk is still an object and it's in the accusative case form. Just 를 has dropped and we cannot see it. In what situations you can say 우유는 샀습니다 instead of 우유를 샀습니다? Imagine someone asks you to go to a local market and buy a bunch of groceries. And then they call you and ask, have you bought onions? You say no. Have you bought bread? You say no. Have you bought milk? You say, yes, I bought milk. 우유는 샀습니다. Unlike other groceries which you haven't bought yet, you bought the milk. You emphasize that you bought milk, okay? Well, we are done with the most confusing grammar in the Korean language. If you still have any questions or need any advice on how to learn Korean, feel free to ask me. And as always, your homework is to learn new words. You can also check them out in the description below this video.